I'm going to show you a few different ways of using different kinds of fonts in your CSS style rules. First thing to note is that all the system fonts, it's pretty easy to use system fonts, and system fonts are a collection of fonts that you can pretty much guaranteed are installed on all computers in the world. Because what happens when a browser looks at a HTML page, it checks through the CSS, finds a reference to a different font family, and then tries to load that, that font file and then display it in the browser window. So it's pretty easy for it to find system fonts because they're already installed on the system that the browser is running. System fonts are fonts like Arial, Verdana, Times, Courier, I think Impact. Like there might be like a dozen or a couple of dozen of fonts that you can kind of guarantee that that are safe to use without referencing external font files. And I'll load one up by adding to the body style rule here, font family of Arial. So I don't have to do anything apart from call that font family for it to render over here. But you know, you probably get pretty bored with designing with Arial fairly quickly, so we need to use web fonts for any kind of more interesting or intricate or bespoke typography. So I'll just delete that. Codepen has a pretty good feature in its assets panel that allows you to kind of quickly bring in a small selection of web fonts. So it's got these fonts here, Lato, Open Sans, Roboto, and these are Google fonts. Now I'm going to select Montserrat to include into my project, and I'll just pull this little pull down here, and there's a couple of little options here. There are two ways to include web fonts into your HTML and CSS. One is via the style sheet link, and one is via the @import method. Adding a link, you will add to your HTML. Adding the @import, you will add to your CSS. I'm going to, at the moment, use the @import method. So I'm going to click on that, and that will copy some code for me to use to include into my CSS. So I'm just going to shut that window. And at the top of my CSS here, I'm going to paste that code here, and you can see the @import method, and then it's going to a URL which is on a Google server where that file, where that type text file, font file, excuse me, is located. Now, so I've called that file into the browser, but then I have to specify in my style rule that I want to use it. So I'm going to go back out to Assets again and go to Montserrat, pull that little tab down, and then copy the font family code. All right, and then come over to my body, paste that in there, font family, Montserrat, and then comma, and it's telling me that if it can't find Montserrat, it's going to fall back to any sans serif font that it can find. But you can see now that it is rendering Montserrat in my viewport there. So that's a nice, easy, quick way when you're working in Codepen of getting a font, of a Google font, getting a small selection of Google fonts into your project. I'm just going to, well, what I might do now is move over to the Google font site itself, and I'm going to write fonts.google. Oops, fonts.google. Okay, so this is the Google font website, and you might have come here to get some fonts to install on your system to work in your desktop publishing environment or for making your web layouts and so forth. Let's look at how we can include the web font version and render that in our browser. I'm going to grab something crazy so that it looks kind of different, and maybe not that one. How about this one? Looks pretty funny. Ranches. Okay, so you would download that font if you wanted to install it on your system, but we can also select this style. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to select this style, and I'm going to click over to the Embed tab here, and I'm going to link it to my style sheet with the import method like we did before. Now you can see here that it has a style tag, and we don't need to worry about copying that, but we'll copy just this little section here like we did with Montserrat through Codepen. I'm going to Command-C, copy that on my keyboard, come over here, and I'm going to add that into my style sheet, okay, just like we did before. And then toggle back to the font family rule itself or declaration, and I'm going to copy that and bring it over here, and I'll paste that into my body declaration. And there you go, we've included that external Google font into our project, which is pretty good. The other way that we can do that, or the other kind of font library that is available to us, is the Adobe font library, and we can access that in a couple of different ways. But I might go to the browser and go to fonts.adobe.com. You can also access this through, I'll just log in. So here I am logged in. You can also access the Adobe Font Library through your CC app, which is kind of here on your Mac. Yeah, so let's find a font in the library that we want to use. I'm going to click on Get Started and just pick something pretty that contrasts to what to the Google font that we chose, and I'm going to make sure that I've got this little symbol here next to the font, because that'll indicate that that font is a web-safe font we can use, and I'm going to view that family. I'm going to add this font to a web project. All right, so you'll want to give that a name. You want to give that a name for your particular project. I might add it to an existing project that I have, and then save that font. So when I do that, it gives me the code that I need, so the import link, and I'll copy that just like I did in the Google version over into my style sheet, and then I can copy the font family declaration, copy that over, and then I'll paste that into my body copy here, and we'll watch that font re-render in its new typeface. Okay, so that's a couple of different ways of incorporating different types of fonts, different fonts from different font libraries into your web projects.